A damning new human rights report accuses Myanmar's military of systematically assaulting the Rohingya. Fortify Rights says the country's soldiers planned attacks on the Rohingya ahead of last year's military crackdown. The report identifies more than 20 army and police officials responsible for alleged atrocities. Among them are the Commander-in-Chief and the Joint Chief of Staff of Myanmar's military. For more on this, we're joined by Linda Lakhdhir, legal advisor for Human Rights Watch. She joins us from New York. Very good to have you with us, Linda Lakhdhir. What do you make of these latest allegations? Pretty shocking.
As I indicated earlier, I have not actually had time to read the full Fortify Rights report. I have read the press release, but certainly what's been going on in Myanmar has been shocking for now several months. It's been well documented the extent to which there have been crimes against humanity against the Rohingya population, resulting in the flight of over 700,000 people to Bangladesh. So this is just one more piece to fit into a much larger puzzle.
What has been coming out are reports, a growing number of reports into the military's involvement and what has been called a genocidal campaign. I'm just wondering, from a legal point of view, what is happening in order to make this stop?
Well, the pressure right now is on to try and get a referral to the International Criminal Court. This is something where Myanmar, the military, has been doing this for years against the Rohingya. It's not the first time there's been a campaign of brutality against the Rohingya. 2012 this happened, 2016 happened. This is just the worst of a series of assaults on the population. And it has continued in part because there has been no accountability for those who have been involved and in charge. So the push now is to ensure that this time there is accountability for those involved, and that involves getting this referred to the International Criminal Court. This involves having the court identify those who are responsible and make sure that they're brought to justice.
How much international support would you have to have in order to make that happen? Because there are so many players involved in Myanmar, aren't there? Is that going to be a problem?
Obviously, there is concern that both China and Russia could potentially block a move at the UN Security Council to refer this to the International Criminal Court. But I think a real push from all of the rest of the international community and all the other members of the UN Security Council needs to be made to convince them that this is not something which can be allowed to go unpunished.
And it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? It carries on, even though the spotlight has been on the country for several years now, documenting the atrocities. Is it getting increasingly hard to find out what is going on? And I'm referring to those two Reuters journalists who have been arrested, who are facing trial there. What's going to happen to them, and what does it suggest about the clamping down going on there?
I think the arrest of the Reuters journalists is one indication of how far the Myanmar government is willing to go to ensure that evidence of what's happened does not come out. The journalists had in fact uncovered evidence of a serious massacre in the village of Indin, and rather than investigate that massacre and say, great, you've helped us uncover this and we bring these people to justice, they have arrested them, charged them under the Official Secrets Act, and they face up to 10 years in prison, basically for doing their job as journalists and uncovering a massacre. And this is actually part of a larger crackdown on freedom of speech that's been going on in Myanmar for some time, where critics of the government and critics of the military in particular have been arrested and imprisoned for that sort of criticism.
And if anyone is able to talk to anybody who can stop this, I mean, who do you turn to? Is it the military? Is it Aung San Suu Kyi, who is very hands-off when this is concerned?
Well, I think obviously you need to speak to both. The Aung San Suu Kyi is not in charge of the military under the Constitution, which was written by the military before the election that brought her party to power. The military has significant presence in Parliament and controls some of the major ministries. So there are some limits to what she can do, but I think there is a very strong sense that she has not really tried to use what leverage she has to bring this to a halt, and that she is not taking seriously the very, very strong evidence of the atrocities that have happened in Rakhine State.
And how seriously are they taking repatriating the hundreds of thousands of Rohingya who fled mainly to Bangladesh? Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, they're suffering a lot there. Many people are dying under awful conditions. Is anyone keen to go back to the horrors that they could potentially face in Myanmar again?
I mean, people have said that they would go back, but they will only go back when they can be sure that they have their rights, that they have citizenship, that they have freedom of movement, that they have access to education, access to livelihoods, access to health care, security and safety being very, very important. And right now, it is abundantly clear that those conditions do not exist on the ground in Rakhine, that you cannot have a safe, voluntary and dignified return under the current situation in Rakhine State.
It's so horrifying, isn't it?
If the Myanmar government is serious about saying that it wants these individuals to come back to the country, they need to take very, very concrete steps.
It's horrendous, isn't it, that this is happening
Yes.
under our watch. I'm just wondering what it's going to take. I know you wanted to go to the ICC. I mean, what sort of charges would those responsible face if they make it to the ICC?
Obviously, that would be up to the prosecutor at the International Criminal Court. Certainly, we have documented what we would describe as crimes against humanity, including rape, sexual assault, torture, persecution, forced displacement, forced deportation. Others have said this could bear the hallmarks of genocide. That's something that would have to be decided by the court. But if, in fact, that is there, then those charges also should be brought. It's really a function of the court to decide what charges to bring. But there are many very, very serious charges that people could and possibly should face in this case.
And obviously, this has to happen soon because we're seeing people being wiped out and a lost generation. I mean, you just wonder how those who've been affected will ever get over the trauma that they experienced.
That is a serious concern, and it's a concern also in part because there is not enough sort of social, psychological support in the camps in Bangladesh to help support the people with the trauma they suffered. You have now women giving birth to babies who are born of rape. That is also something that is very difficult for people to deal with emotionally and psychologically, and there isn't enough support in the camps to help people get through this trauma, which could then help perpetuate the trauma.
Okay, Linda Lakhdhir, very good to talk to you. Thanks for talking to us from New York. There was a horrible delay there, but I think we managed that successfully. Thank you. How do young musicians make money if older legends are dying poor? Winner of the 2018 Standard Bank Young Artist for Jazz,
Thank you.
Tandin Tuli, joins us.